All right, welcome back to the puzzle series where we solve a different puzzle every day on this channel. We're just starting out. This is going to be our second ever puzzle. Very exciting. If you're watching this from the future where, maybe this channel has gotten a little bit more popular, you're looking back, this is one of the first videos and you'll get to kind of see where things are at when we just started out, and that could be very exciting as well. So here we have an endgame position where there's not a lot of material left on the board. And so any bit of material one way or the other is going to make a big difference. Our opponent is actually up one pawn. The F2 pawn is an extra pawn. So he has an opportunity to push these pawns and create a pass pawn on the king side. So we're really going to have to win probably like a bishop or a rook to justify our advantage in this position. Immediately, there is the idea of forking the king and the rook on the queen side over here with knight c3 check. So that would fork the rook, but he would just take this rook of ours, and then we would take his rook, and material would still be even at that point. So we're looking for something that could potentially allow us to hit that fork and win material instead of losing it. So we got to examine this position a little bit deeper. So we can take on e3 with our rook, but after pawn takes e3, then we could give the check on c3 with our knight and hit the rook on b1. Now, what is important to point out in this position is that our knight is also hitting this e3 square, which means that after rook takes e3, he can't take back with his king and run away from that fork square, or as I like to call it, the fork destination square, the e2 square, the square that will be attacked by the forking piece when it has moved into the forking square, which here would be c3. Not to be overly pedantic, but I like my definitions around here. I like to be very precise when I'm talking about these things. So let's calculate this line in its entirety. Rook takes e3. It's also with a check. And we've already determined that if he takes, we're going to give the check with our knight. And let's say he goes king to d2. Then we take on b1 with our knight. And let's say he goes king c1 or king c2, trying to maybe trap our knight. Let's say king c2. Our knight can get away with knight to a3 and then hop into b5 and eventually run away. So our knight is a little bit faster than his king, and we don't have to worry about our knight being trapped. Rook takes, pawn takes, and knight check. I think that we don't have to look at that line anymore. We've already calculated it. So rook takes check. If he doesn't take, if he just moves his king to d2 to run away from that fork, like we talked about earlier, getting away from that fork destination square, what would we do in that situation? Well, our rook is under attack by the pawn, so we would just move our rook out of danger. We would go, let's just say a random move like rook to e5, and we've taken one of his pieces for free, his bishop. So I think that looks pretty good. Those are the only two main variations, either pawn takes or king moves, that we should cover here. Keep in mind the rook takes e3 again is a check, so it is a forcing move. It's the most aggressive possible move in the position. It's a capture and it's a check. So it's definitely one of the moves that we should first analyze. So I feel pretty confident about this. Let's make the move and see what he does. He takes with the pawn, so then we go forward with our plan of getting the knight check. And then we take the rook, and that's the end of that puzzle. Hope you guys have enjoyed.